If your wrists get tired, then take off your clothes. Feel like I'm always fighting to keep your love. And when you don't reply, I feel like something's wrong with me. I get disappointed way too fucking easily, but I don't want to toughen up. Cause I'm a soft bitch, but that's how I like it. I don't wanna fake it, I don't wanna fight, can't stop it. Cause I know you like it too. So pet me, feed me, love me, pet me, feed me, love. Truth is, we're both needy. You can't get enough of this soft shit. Cause that's how you like it. I don't wanna fake it. You don't wanna fight this soft bitch. Cause I know you like her too. Yeah, if you tell me I'm pretty, then I'll never let you go. Keep it sunny even when you're cold. You say I'm alive, but trust me, I already know, you know. I know.
Baby, this is do or die. Feel it in my veins tonight. Emotional suicide. You know it's an eye for eye. I didn't wanna walk the plank. No, but the Mariona, it came like the thunder. I was on my way to going under. Swimming in the bay, yeah, I was covered in a tidal wave, But I'm a fighter. Try to take me down, I'm going higher. Baby, you've been playing with some fire. You've been playing with fire. One day you will see what you made of me. Found my inner beast. You are released in the dead of night. In the dead of night.
Good evening, hackers and builders. Hello, everybody. My name is Robbie. I work for Major League Hacking. Now, give me 2 seconds here. In classic MLH fashion and live stream fashion, I got some feedback here. I can hear myself. Looks like that was a mistake on my end, but let's go. We are going to create a personal site using GitHub Pages. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here. And that means you will be able to see what I can see, which is fantastic. So you can see me on the left, you can see my screen here. We're going to go ahead and create a personal website with GitHub Pages, something that looks a bit like this. We're going to take a template repository and build up a nice simple portfolio website. Got a picture of ourselves, got my name, Robbie Yarker Whitworth, that's how you pronounce it. Got a few simple projects that I worked on, got some work experience, got some education as well. And we're going to walk through this, from start to finish, how we build just a simple site like this, and get it on GitHub Pages. And then we'll go ahead and submit it as well onto DevPost so that you can see how you can actually go ahead and submit that and get the points for your challenge. Look, so there's quite a few people following along here, which is very, very exciting. And if you see me looking off to the left, it's because I've got my laptop here. If you see me looking up, it's because I've got another screen here. My webcam's here, my main screen's here. It's a bit of a crazy setup. So this is the website we're going to build. Obviously, you can customize this with your own name and your own information. I'm not suggesting you'll build a site that looks just like mine. So GitHub Pages, if you don't know what it is an easy way to build or rather host static websites using GitHub, completely free. It's fantastic. You just point at some simple web pages, index.html, that kind of file, and it will host it for you and handle deployment. And you can even do some more advanced stuff with it. We'll get onto that if we have time. This session is going to last roughly 1 hour. And like I say, we'll build out this site. If we have some free time, we'll maybe put some more advanced stuff in. Let's see how we get on. It's going to be very casual, very laid back. So GitHub Pages. We are going to start by shamelessly taking someone else's existing repository and forking it, which is exactly what open source is all about. Now, if you go to Google and you type in MLH portfolio, the top result is hopefully this, the MLH Fellowship Portfolio Template. You can click on this, open it up on GitHub. This is something from the MLH Fellowship. So we're actually going to take that and modify it and use it just for a local Hack Day build and for your own personal websites. And you'll see this is a normal GitHub repository. I'm assuming you've got some basic knowledge of how Git works and some simple web development knowledge. If not, just try and follow along. And if it's too difficult, there's definitely more sessions later on next week to introduce you to some of those new technical skills as well. And the nice thing about this repository is it's done a lot of the hard work for us. So we can just add the information about projects and experiences without having to get too bogged down in the details. Now, if we find this repository, you can either go ahead and fork it or use it as a template. I'm going to click on use this template. And what this will do for us is it gives us an opportunity to create a new repository from this portfolio template. Now, there's a little bit of a trick you need to know here when you're working with GitHub Pages. And if I pull up the documentation here, as we scroll down, you'll see that if we're building a user site, to create a repository, you need a special formatted name for the repository, which is your username.github.io, where username is your username on GitHub. And as it tells us here, if the first part of the repository doesn't exactly match your username, it won't work. So make sure you get that right. You can see here an example of how that works. The repository name needs to be your username.github.io. Just taking a look at the messages here on Twitch chat as well. Can we send the link to the chat? Yes. You can just search for MLH portfolio and you'll find it. But it is this one. I'm going to go ahead and post that to all destinations because we are live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. So hopefully you should see that now coming through on the Twitch chat. So if you've got that up, you can go to use this template and we'll fork it. And as we were saying, when we create this repository name, it needs to be our username.github.io. So I'm going to go ahead here and type in Rob's Wolf, which is my GitHub username, .github.io. I'm going to keep it as public because, open source is great. We'll go ahead and hit create repository from template. As I do this, it's going to start creating the repository. Just takes a couple of seconds. And this is different to forking a repository. So when you fork a repository, you kind of copy that repository's Git history and add to it. When we use it as a template, there's only one commit, which is initial commit. It literally takes that repository and copies it, which is quite useful when we don't want to necessarily have all of that Git history. Is it case sensitive? I believe so. It says here, you need to exactly match your username. So if your username has capital letters in, go ahead and put capitals in that. Should I make it public or private? Make it public. So we've made this repository and we're off to a good start. Now you'll see there's quite a few files here. It can be a little bit overwhelming. This is what's called a Jekyll website. So this website, Jekyll, sorry, let me get some more words all right here. This is a Jekyll website, and Jekyll is a tool for building static websites. So you could put some information into it, like this config file, and like we see here in the README, some information about what we want to appear on the pages in a nicely formatted way. And then we can use Jekyll to turn that into actual HTML code, which we can then host with GitHub Pages. And again, I'm just following along with the comments here on the Twitch chat as well. So some people are saying, should I make it private or public? So that's that one. Make it public. Do we need to make a new GitHub Pages site, or can I use something I've already made? If you've already made something, go ahead and just submit to the challenge. That's really brilliant that you already know that. Is it case sensitive? It needs to match your username exactly. What else we got? Could I show the last step again? Yes, but I can't clone it again. Basically, once I've got this repository open, I'm just going to click on use this template. This is from the MLH Fellowship one. Type in my name, so robswolf.github.io. Leave it as public. Got this warning because I've just done it. And then we're going to hit create repository from template. When we do that, it will create this new repository just like this. What else we got? Do we need to import all files or main? Just the main. Okay, I think that's most of our questions for now. Oh, well, I've still got that banner going across the bottom. Look at that. Smooth. Nice. So we've got this repository up. We've got one commit. And there's a few different approaches we can do here, right? We can either just edit this using the web interface, which is the easiest way. Or we can get a little bit more advanced, check out the repository locally, make our changes locally, and then go ahead and publish those changes, push those back up to Git, which is a slightly more advanced way. And now, whenever you've got a new repository that you've used from somewhere else, go ahead and go down to the README. And this, if the project maintainer has done their job, you'll see some instructions here on how to get started. So this, you'll see, is copied over from the template repository. And our first step is to make our own. So it says fork this repository or use the template button. We use the template button. And the step 2 is to update config.yaml to contain your information. So change URL to be what your GitHub Pages will be. Make sure it has a slash. Number 3, go to settings to turn on GitHub Pages. So there's quite a few things there. Let's walk through that again slowly. So the first step, fork this repository or use the template button. We've done that. We've now got a copy of this repository in our own GitHub account. Step 2 is to update this file, config.yaml, to contain your information. So if I go in here to the config.yaml file, and I'm going to start by doing this the easy way, which I just mentioned. And then once we've done a quick example using that, we'll move on to the more advanced way. So this is the config file, which describes what the site looks like. And I think actually, if we go back to this is the template one. We'll go over to here. This is what it looks like by default. It says Will Russell, which is the person who made this. There's a lovely picture of Will, some information about Will, which is great, but I want some information about me, right? I'm not Will. So that information pulls from this config file. That's where title comes from and a couple of things like that. So the easy way is when you're in the GitHub web interface like this, just go ahead and once you're in config YAML, click on this pencil icon here. What this pencil icon will do is bring up an option to edit this file. So we'll click on that. And now we've got a text editor for this file. I'm going to go ahead and change the name here from Will Russell to Robbie Jacob Whitworth. And instead of fellowship@mlh.io for the email, we'll just go hi@mlh.io. You probably want to put your own personal email in here, but I don't fancy sharing my personal email with everyone. Description, we could just leave this blank for now. It's not that important. Base URL is fine. Now, URL, if you remember, it said something important about that in the README. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this in a new tab. If I go down, it says here for step 2, change URL to be what your GitHub Pages will be, the name of the repository. Make sure it has the slash. So this is, again, slightly interesting. If we head to the GitHub Pages documentation, when we host it, it'll appear at https:// your GitHub username.github.io, which is the same as the name of that repository, right? So for URL, we're going to change that to say the name of the repository with the slash. So let's go ahead and put that in. https:// robswolf.github.io /. Twitter username, I've got robswolf. GitHub username is also robswolf. And then the rest of it we can all leave fine. Now this is our config file, which describes the data on the site. If I go ahead and I hit preview changes, you'll see this has shown me what I've just changed. So it's removed the title and the email that was there before, and I've replaced it with my name, with hi instead of fellowship. We've changed the URL, Twitter username, and GitHub username to these new things. Let's go ahead, and we're going to do our first commit. So instead of just update config.yaml, which is a default message, we'll be a bit more descriptive. We'll say update config.yaml to include Robbie's name and social media. Pro tip, great commit summaries contain fewer than 50 characters. I'm going to quietly ignore this right now. We'll go ahead, commit directly to master, hit commit changes, and then we are good to go. Those changes have been made here, which is fantastic. Now, I said we were going to use the easy method, which is just that what I've just shown here. So now that that's done, let's go back to our main repository. Scroll down, we've updated config. Go to the repository settings and turn on GitHub Pages. And again, I'm just seeing a few questions come here. The page looks really zoomed in for me. Any reason why? If you're referring to your own page on your computer, try zooming out. If you're referring to mine, it's because I've got it quite zoomed in here because I'm streaming on Twitch and I want people on small screens to be able to see what's going along. What's this? Can you explain fork this repository part again? Yes, that's fairly simple. So when you've got this base repository, you'll see this is configured to be a template repository here on GitHub. That's what this template badge is. And so in addition to like get code or whatever that normally appears, there's this button for use this template. So when I click on that and I fill out the form with my username, .github.io and public, and create a repository from template, that will copy that template repository from the MLH Fellowship account on GitHub to my personal account on GitHub. That's what that does. Anything else here? Do we commit directly to master for this? Yes, that's absolutely fine. Just go ahead and commit to master. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and post the URL for the template repository again there, just so people who want to see it. Okay. Where did we get to? Oh yes, go to your repository settings and turn on GitHub Pages. So we modified the config file, and now we need to enable GitHub Pages for this repository. And this is where the magic happens. This is why we had it with this this weird name, robswolf.github.io. I'm going to go ahead and hit settings on this repository. And that brings up the settings, right? And just leave it on the options tab. And if we scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down quite a long way, past all this, there's a section called GitHub Pages. When we've got GitHub Pages, it says here, your site is published at robswolf.github.io. And there it is. That's my name. Not a picture of me, but not updated that yet. And you can see here in the tab title as well, it's got my name. So all looking good. So we're off to a great start. We've made some changes and it's looking good. If it's not working for you, just make sure these settings are on by default. Branch should be master. This just needs to be root. And triple check that the repository name is your username exactly as it is on GitHub.github.io. So we've done that and we are live, which is really, really excellent. Now we're going to be slightly more advanced about it and move forward and make some additional changes to it because as we saw at, where was my site gone? As we see, none of this is my information, right? I have not been part of the fellowship. I did not go to the University of Birmingham, so we need to update this. Now, I'm going to do this a slightly more advanced way for those of you who understand it, but you can also just do this in the browser. You can just go into these files. Everything that I'm doing, that I will do in VS Code, you can do in the browser by heading into data, editing of these files, and just clicking on edit here. I'm going to make these changes locally because that's the more correct way to do it. So we're on the main page for our repository, and we'll go ahead and click on code, and we'll click on this copy button. And now I'm going to go across to one of these desktops. I've got a terminal. Here we go. I've got a terminal up here, and I'm going to write git clone, paste that in, and it's going to clone that. Now, I'm using SSH to clone it. You might just use HTTPS instead, which is totally fine as well. So we've cloned this repository, and if I do an ls, you're going to see a lot of repositories here. The important one is the one we just cloned, robswolf.github.io. So I'm going to go ahead and cd into that directory. And now we're in here, and if I do an ls, again, I can see all those files and folders the same as I see them on GitHub. Now, the way we make changes on this template repository is by modifying those files in data. So if we refer back to our README, it's going to say, head to data and fill out either projects, experience, and education. We're going to fill out experience and education, and then if we've got time, we'll do projects as well. So this is our repository. Now, I've got a program installed called VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Now, whenever I search for it, it brings up this random note, which is a bit odd. So I've got this open here. I'm going to go ahead and open folder, go into dev, find robsoft.github.io, and I'm also just going to put that at the top of my favorites. And then click open. Okay, and if this looks too big on stream, just let me know and I'll zoom out. I'll zoom out just a little bit. Go with that for now. Let's see what's going on here. Are our questions even being seen? Yes, but there's currently 569 people watching the stream. So if your questions get lost, you'll forgive me. It's definitely worth following the documentation as well to explain the GitHub Pages documentation, because this kind of explains what you need to do as well. Will we be covering how to add in a custom domain? Ideally, yes. If there's time, we'll do it. So let's keep moving forward here. One more question that I want to answer. What other IDEs can we use? Basically anything you want. Atom, Brackets, Nano, Vim, anything from JetBrains. There's all sorts of options available. So it's totally up to you. Let's go ahead and where do we get to? VS Code. So we'll go into our data directory. And I'm going to start with education. Now, the nice thing about this site and this template is it's built using Jekyll, which I mentioned earlier. Jekyll is great because it means I can just type in this information here in this YAML file, and it will update the site for us without having to, without me having to go into the HTML and all that kind of stuff. And before I start editing this file, I need to get a local server up and running. And all that means is that I'll be able to view the site locally. So if we head to the very bottom here, it says, if you want to test it locally, run the below commands. Make sure to have Ruby and Bundler installed. There is instructions for doing this. If you just Google install Jekyll and walk through it for your operating system. If you're on Mac, I recommend you use the rbenv option. This takes about 20 minutes to half an hour, so I'm not going to do it live on stream because most of it is just sitting watching your terminal do matrix style loads and loads of stuff. Once you've got that installed, then you can go ahead and head to our terminal, and we need to type in bundle install. Done, and then we'll do bundle exec Jekyll serve. Brilliant. Server address is here, so I'm going to open that up. And there we go. This is now running locally, and that's what this number is. It's the IP address of my local machine. So that's working locally, which is fantastic because we can head to VS Code. Excuse me. We can head to VS Code. There's a comment here I got to address. Do your eyes not burn with the white theme? I use a white theme on everything, like Discord and all sorts. And we had this problem when we started the MLH Discord. Is people of a certain role, I can't remember what it was. They had a white username, and all the training materials we had was like, if someone has a white username, then you need to tell them to, do whatever it is they need to do. And I couldn't see anyone with a white username. I was like, why are there so many people who have no username? And it later turned out I was the only person at MLH who was using the white theme on Discord. Everyone else is using the duck theme. So personally, I've always been a black text on a white background. That's my kind of thing. Right, let's keep moving forward here because time is flying by, which is exciting. So we have got our server up and running. It's running here locally. I'm going to go ahead and start modifying this education file. Now, this is a little bit like a resume or a CV, right? It's your personal portfolio site. And if you're not sure what to put on it, head over to your LinkedIn profile, scroll down, and if you filled out your LinkedIn profile, then there's some stuff on here that you can start with. I'm not going to put everything on because we've only got about an hour for this workshop, but I'll put a few basic things on, like my university. So I'm here in VS Code. My course is not actually BSc in computer science. It's a BSc in natural sciences, brackets, computer science and maths with placement. My institute was not University of Birmingham. It was, in fact, Durham University. And the dates, I'm going to type in here October 2016. Gosh, that was a long time ago. To September 2020. And then the logo we'll tackle in just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and save here. And now if I go over to our local site, reload, there we go. It's got my new degree title and the university and the dates as well, which is fantastic. So that's really, really good. The logo is not correct though. So let's go ahead and change that. Now I'm going to firstly put that like that, and then I'm going to open a new Finder window, head to our repo. And now earlier I went through and got all the logos for everything that I'm involved with, so I don't spend ages on Google now. In your repository, all the images and things, they live in this folder called assets. So if you go to assets and then image and then education, you'll see we've got fellowship.svg and UOB, which is presumably University of Birmingham. That's what was there before. See that here, right? It's referencing this file uob.png. I'm instead going to take this file du.png, paste that in, and that's for my university. Let's go ahead and change that. Save, go back to Firefox, reload. There it is, the new crest, which is fantastic. So we've updated that logo. And then the second one, I was never part of the MLH Fellowship, not as a fellow anyway. So let's go ahead and we'll put on an AWS credential that I've got. So I actually have a credential called AWS Solutions Architect Associate. I got that from Amazon Web Services in November 2020. And I'm going to change the logo from the Fellowship logo to AWS logo. Let's change that here. So we've added these two into education. Go back to Firefox. Look at that. We are on a roll. We've got my degree here and we've got this credential as well. You may want to put your school, or if you've got some additional education, put those on, your A-levels or diploma or whatever qualification you do in your region. How do you add logos if you're staying in the browser? That's a great question, actually. You can go ahead and add file in your repository and then upload files. And that's just how you can go ahead and upload that picture and just put it in the same place, assets, image, education. Okay, so we've done education. Let's go ahead and do work experience as well. So for this one, we'll just go ahead and open experience. I, again, have not been an open source fellow. I am, in fact, a European coach at Major League Hacking. Dates are February 2018 to present. Again, a very long time ago when I started MLH. And for logo, so that's in our education folder. We want experience. And there's already an MLH logo there. That's fine. So we'll go ahead and put mlh.svg. Save. Firefox. Reload. European coach, Major League Hacking, February 2018 to present. Any recommendations for format or size of the logo? It doesn't really matter. I mean, ideally, you don't want something huge, right? Because the logo is only going to be this big. It doesn't need to be 1,000 pixels wide, because that will make your web page slow to load. Actually, a little bit of a sidestep. If you go to, let's say we type in AWS, we want the AWS logo, you get all these options. What you can do instead, just type in AWS Wikipedia. Go to the Wikipedia page for AWS, Amazon Web Services, and they've got the logo here. And the nice thing is, if you click on this, go to more details, it has it rendered as a PNG in all these different sizes. So go ahead and just choose the smallest one, like 200 pixels is probably big enough. And that's actually exactly what I did. And that way we're not loading this massive, massive file on a web page, because that's going to slow down our load. We have set up our work experience. Tell you what, let's add a couple more on here. My work experience is looking a little bit bare at the minute. We'll do role. I'm also a graduate consultant, AWS Professional Services. is Amazon Web Services. Dates. I started in September. Logo. AWS. And just note, because I'm working on the experience file, it's going to draw pictures from the experience folder. So I can't reference that picture from the education folder. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy it into this folder as well. So we've got aws.png, and one more will go role. My first proper job was as a junior PHP developer, and that was at a company called Komodo Digital. Dates. I'm going to have to check my LinkedIn for this. September 2018 to August 2019. The logo is Komodo. Okay, save Firefox, get back to our local one, reload. Look at that. That is really starting to come on. We've got our education, got our work experience. It's all looking good. And let me just see how Twitch chat is doing as well. Can we just link the logo to an online image URL? Yes, kind of. So the way this works is we're referring to the file, just the file name with no path. And that's because it's automatically looking in the education folder in assets image. So what you would actually need to do if you wanted to do this, and this is a more advanced thing, is you need to dig down into includes and do, which one I talk about? Education. And you'll see here, it says image src equals assets image education, and then that logo. You would need to tweak this slightly so that it just has the logo bit. And then you would need to include the full path for all your images. But I don't want to do that. I'm going to leave that as by default. It's much better if you can just include those images in your repository. How else are we doing? Do we have to check in for this stream? Actually, because we're about halfway through, this is a brilliant point to pause just for a minute and say that if you've not checked in, you need to check in. So let's go ahead and do that together. We'll go to the MLH website, his local hack day build. We'll bring this up. Sign up now. And then this is for local hack day build in general, but we need to check into this activity. And that is set up a personal GitHub page. So we'll do that. Here we are, create a personal site, hit login and register. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I've actually already checked in. Just go ahead and click on check in or register and check in here. And that helps us A, track the numbers of how many people are following, and B, is important for you as well. Hi, fellow Amazonian. Fantastic. Good to see another Amazonian here. What else have we got? I've already made my portfolio site, use GitHub Pages. Fantastic. Feel free to just go ahead and submit that to DevPost, which is great at the end. My updates and VS Code do not transfer to the web page. What could be wrong? A couple of things to check. Make sure you're actually saving. VS Code doesn't have autosave on by default. And then head back to your terminal. Make sure that this is running as well. So you had to run bundle exec Jekyll serve. That will actually start the local development server. Okay, so we've done our check-in stuff. Got this up and running. And then projects. Let's go ahead and fill out projects while we're here as well. Now, projects is a little bit different, but I'm going to go ahead and simple. I'll just add the one project. It's something called Nutrexa, which is a project built at a hackathon called Hack Cambridge, all the way back in 2018, 3 years ago. And that was called Hack Cambridge. Ternary, which was January 2018. So I hit save. If I go back to Firefox and I reload, it's Nutrexa. Brilliant. I just see here, what do I write for education if I'm still a student? This is a fantastic question. What I would do is say almost exactly what we've got the same here, but instead of saying an end date, just say to present, just like I am here with these. Alternatively, you might want to put September 2021, or whenever you think you're going to graduate, and then just put in brackets afterwards, expected. So let's say, as a quick example, if I'm not going to graduate until 2021, I could just write it like that. I've seen that on a lot of resumes, and that worked totally fine. That says to whoever's reading your portfolio site when you think you're going to graduate. But of course, all sorts of things can change that. I ended up changing my degree twice halfway through, which is why that date can change. Do we need to write the details of projects? There's a bit of scope in this template repository to actually go ahead and write pages and like little blog posts about your projects. We're not going to be looking at that in this session, but if you want to dig deeper, you can definitely go ahead and do that. Which command did you use to run it locally? If you go to the README, scroll down to the very bottom, and it'll say development. If you want to test it locally, run the below commands. Make sure to have Ruby and Bundler installed. So you need to go ahead and install Bundler and Jekyll, which is a little bit of a pain, which is why I say this is a more advanced method, because plowing through the terminal and installing all this stuff is a bit of a nightmare. But once you've got that installed, it's bundle install and then bundle exec Jekyll serve. Alternatively, you might not want to put your school there for privacy reasons. Again, totally cool as well. I'm quite open about what I'm doing. You can see all the details on my LinkedIn and my personal site. But you might just want to say, you're studying this subject at a university in Germany or India or Mexico, Canada, right? How do we change the image in the header? That is a great question. We'll come on to that in just a minute. Because right now, we all still look like Will Russell, and we don't want to do that. Okay, so this is where we got to with our personal site. I've got a project on here. It's good to get 2 or 3 projects on, just show that you're capable of building some stuff. I'm only going to put 1 on for now. I've got some work experience on, and I got my education. And if you don't have much work experience, that's totally fine as well, right? Let's say you are part of a club or a society at a university. Go ahead and put that in instead. Now all we need to do is change this picture. So I'm going to go back to VS Code. And I'm not actually sure where the config is for that picture. Let's have a look in config.yaml. There's icon, but there's nothing here about the logo on the site, right? And I have a feeling that that's actually because in my images, it's just this. It's just called logo.jpg, this picture of Will. So I'm going to take this picture of Robbie and paste that in. I'm going to delete logo.jpg and change that to logo. So now logo.jpg is a picture of me. And if I reload, look at that. It's a picture of me. Woohoo! Now, that might have been a little bit fast for some of you, so I'm going to see if I can undo. So I'm really getting all tangled up with my words here today. The way to update the picture, or the profile picture here, is to go into the folder locally, find the file called logo.jpg, go ahead and just delete that, and then take a picture of you and rename it to logo.jpg. There we go. Now if I go ahead and reload, we've got a picture of me. If you're doing that on the web interface, just go ahead and do add file, upload files, and upload it to the same place with the same name, overwriting the picture that's already there. So can we do all these changes on GitHub? Yes, you absolutely can. So we're looking pretty good with our site at the minute, aren't we? We've got a picture of us, we've got Robbie Whitworth, we've got some projects, work experience, education. There is this MLH fellowship at logo at the top. I'm not going to go into right now how we're going to change that because it's a little bit more advanced. Let's focus on just getting this up onto GitHub Pages, because at the minute it's still running locally. And if I go to this site, github.io, it's still the old stuff, which is not great. Now I'm doing this locally. I'm going to go to my terminal here and what we've got here, a little off topic, but in YAML there's an image called icon.jpg, which it says is in assets, but I cannot find it. That's fine. This repository isn't super clean. There's still a couple of things that need to be tweaked. If you do have any feedback, feel free to make a pull request and suggest your changes. Amy says, if you're doing the changes on GitHub, it might take a little bit for the updates to go to the live site. Absolutely correct. It can take a while. Is it necessary to use a template portfolio for this challenge? No. Feel free to use your own repository and build it out however you like. This is just a quick example to get you up and running. If you have the skills to make something more advanced yourself, absolutely go ahead and do that. That's a great way to learn. Okay, we need to get these changes onto GitHub. So I'm just going to quickly run a git status here. We're going to see all these files. Let's go ahead and do a git add. And we'll do a git commit, and we'll say update site with information about Robbie. And git push. That's probably super fast. Like I said, I'm assuming you have some basic knowledge of Git. Essentially, the commands we just ran were git add dot, which kind of stages all our changes. And then we did a git commit -m commit message. It's not done anything because there's nothing to commit. And then a git push, which will push those changes up to GitHub. If I go over to Firefox here, and I go into our repository, I'm going to reload, and now we have 3 commits. Update site with information about Robbie. And you can see the changes, right? If we go into data, education, you see these are the changes I made. So Durham University and Amazon Web Services. Now, as Amy pointed out earlier, this can take a couple of minutes to update. But if we go to our live site here, we reload. There it is. We have built a site using GitHub Pages. We're live at robswolf.github.io. You can all go there right now and see it. And there's a picture of me, my name, some stuff I've worked on, work experience. And you could go ahead and submit this to DevPost right now. So let's go ahead and do that. And then if there's still some time, we'll jump back and try and do a couple more things in the end. So you're going to need to go to lhdbuildday1.devpost.com. When you've done that, we're going to start our submission. Now, I should probably not be signed into the MLH account here, so let me just reopen this in a personal tab. If you don't have a DevPost account, just go ahead and create one. It's completely free. LHD, that one. Okay, so we're going to join Hackathon. I'm working solo. And then we're going to start our submission. I'm going to create a new project talking about the GitHub Pages site I've just made. So we're actually going to hit this import from GitHub button, reconnect with GitHub. Authorize it. And we're using this one, robswolf.github.io. Import. What's it called? My personal portfolio using GitHub Pages. Short description. Basically the same thing. This is my personal portfolio website, hosted for free using GitHub Pages. Built with nice, it's filled these in for us. Created by me. It's just built by me, so there's no one to add as a team member. And you'll see this is actually copied through a lot of information from the README file. You probably want to go ahead and just delete most of this and instead just write a little bit about what you did. So inspiration. I built this as my personal portfolio site to showcase my work experience and education. I'm just checking these quick comments as well on the side. Looks like people are doing a pretty good job of offering tech support in the chat, which is fantastic. Makes my job a lot easier. So did some inspiration, and we'll just say as well what it's built with. This is a simple Jekyll site based on the MLH Fellowship portfolio template. And the more you write, the better. But for this challenge, it doesn't matter. You don't need to put a huge amount of detail. Image gallery, let's go ahead and skip that for now. Try it out. So instead of the repository link, we actually want the site link, which is this. So we'll copy that, go to dev post, paste that on, click on save, complete your submission, and the build challenge is set up a personal GitHub page, agree to the rules, and then complete submission. It's an exciting moment. You successfully submitted this project to Local Hack Day build day 1. Nice. So we submitted it, and we can still edit it up until the deadline. We've got 20 hours from now. And we've got the inspiration, which I just wrote, what it's built with, and then try it out as well. We've got this link here to robswolf.github.io, and there's my personal site, which is awesome. It looks like we've got a little bit of time left. So let's move on to something slightly more advanced, and we'll go ahead and try and set up a custom domain. So robswolf.github.io is great for sharing with people, but I like to flex the fact that I bought robbie.dev for actually quite a lot of money a while ago. So we're going to go ahead and use that domain to host our site on GitHub Pages. This is definitely a more advanced step, and it's totally optional. If you just care about the challenge, once you get to this bit and you've submitted the project, you've already done more than enough to qualify for the challenge, and you should be really proud of yourself for building that portfolio site. For those of you who are interested in more advanced stuff, let's move on. Go to GitHub Pages, Pages Help, and we're going to work through the documentation together because I can't remember how to do this off the top of my head. Configuring a custom domain for your GitHub Pages site. Managing a custom domain. Let's try that. Okay. Now, I own the domain robbie.dev. I actually bought it with Google Domains. You can get a domain from loads of places: VeriSign, Domain.com, GoDaddy. Actually, if you attend a MLH hackathon, you can get a free domain at those as well, which is great. And then there's a couple of steps we had to go through about how to configure the domain. This bit's a little bit more fiddly and takes a bit of time. So just make sure you read through the documentation and follow those steps if that's what you want to do. Configuring a subdomain and an Apex domain. And DNS can take a while to propagate, so that's why I've set this up earlier. Essentially, I've got robswolf.github.io, I've got a CNAME to point here, and I've done the @ as well for the A records. Basically, this means that www.robbie.dev and just robbie.dev will both point at GitHub Pages. Now, if I go to configuring an Apex domain, you must configure a CNAME file in your GitHub Pages repository. So the way to do that is on GitHub, navigate to your site's repository, which is here. And then go to settings. How much did robbie.dev cost? It's £48, which is $65. Which is quite a lot of money for a domain, but enough that I was like, I want to own this. I want to have this rather than anyone else have this, right? That was my thinking. But I've definitely got to pay that each year to renew a domain. So we got to our settings page, and then under custom domain, type a custom domain and click save. So we're on our options page. We'll scroll down past all this stuff. Keep going, keep going. GitHub Pages, custom domain. So let's go ahead and type in robbie.dev. And then click on save. Nice. Custom domain robbie.dev saved. And what that will actually do is it will create a commit that adds this file, this is called CNAME, into the root of our publishing source. So if I head back to the code, there's a new file here called CNAME. And if I go into it, it just says robbie.dev. Now, I don't know if this is going to update immediately. I know Firefox is a bit slow to update, so I'm just going to fire up Safari here. And we'll go to robbie.dev. It's going to take a bit of time to update because DNS can be a bit slow. But essentially, once that's live, then your site should be live at robbie.dev. Well, not robbie.dev, but whatever custom domain you put in, rather than just the .github.io. Again, yeah, so you see that's actually loading to my main personal site, which is robbie.xyz. That's just because it's I used to have a redirect setup, which is cached in Firefox. While we wait for that to update, let's take a quick look at some of the comments here on Twitch chat, see how it's doing. Deadline is indeed 24 hours after the opening ceremony. You are correct. Namecheap is good too. Yeah, I mean, there's loads and loads of places to buy domains. I bought this one from Google Domains because that's the place that sold it the cheapest. Personally, I quite like Gandhi as well. But again, tons of options. And if you attend an MLH hackathon, there's usually a free domain code that you can get from domain.com or GoDaddy as well. Some first name domains reach into the thousands. Indeed, they do. Sadly, they're a little bit beyond my budget. On macOS, clear DNS with sudo ds cache util. Oh, I've seen that, but I think it's a Firefox specific thing. Firefox caches it beyond just because in Safari, right? It didn't load at all. So we'll just be patient about that. Okay, could be. Man, there used to be a delay of like a minute at least when we were doing we used a tool called StreamYard for streaming, and there used to be a delay of about a minute between me saying something and it actually broadcasting on Twitch. So having a conversation with someone in the Twitch chat was really, really hard. So either that's been fixed, or you're just got a microphone here and you're listening to what I'm saying before it's actually broadcasting on Twitch. Try Control F5 to force refresh your browser. Let's do a Command F5 on a Mac. Oh God! Welcome to VoiceOver. That's not what I wanted. Firefox, fresh DNS. Oh, I don't want to get down to the details of that. Let's try a couple of things. Let's do ping robbie.dev. Okay, that's resolving to this IP address, which I think is the GitHub one. Yeah, so you can see that here. Again, nice. Do a curl. Okay, so that's actually worked. So curl is a command line tool you can use to basically get the contents of a web page. Now, if I do it, it's bringing up the site here with Robbie Whitworth and the cards and my projects and experience, which is fantastic. It's just my browser being a bit slow to update. Presumably Safari as well is slow to update. Hey, look at that. It took a few minutes, but we got there. This is now live at robbie.dev. We've got my personal portfolio site, which is super, super, super exciting. Let's take a look again. DNS propagation takes more time on weekends. I've not heard that before. It may be true. That's interesting. Also, DNS is like ridiculously complicated. There's quite a few fun stories about it. I always remember there was some country, I can't remember where it was, and they tried to block YouTube. The way they did it was like blocking it at the DNS level, and they did it in such a way that that change propagated out to other countries, so they accidentally took YouTube down for like everyone. My battery is going to dead. I also have this problem. I'm using a MacBook Pro, and the fans are like 100%. It's going to die, definitely. So we got our site live at robbie.dev, which is fantastic. We've got 10 minutes left, so let's see if there's any more little tweaks we can make. I would quite like to remove this MLH Fellowship logo personally and just replace it with a generic MLH logo. That's going to be slightly more advanced because that's not in any of the config files. That's buried in these include files. But let's see if we can figure out what's going on there. So my guess is if we go to layouts, we include header. Header is literally the head. There's this logo. Logo.svg is, that must be the MLH Fellowship logo. And it's on a white background, but I've just seen here, Ruby bundler finally upgraded. This is exactly how I was feeling earlier when I was installing it. It's like, this takes forever. And I'm like, I was Googling, like, why is this hanging? Why is it stuck? It's not stuck. It just takes a long, long time. So let's go ahead and replace that with the MLH logo. Do I have that in SVG? Yes. Delete that. Call it. Ooh, not that one. call it logo. If I go to it locally, which is this one, nice. Looks great. Amusingly enough, we've used either the same or a very similar blue, and I'm not sure what this white border is going on here either. Use an M1 Mac. Yeah, I've heard good things about them. I would really, really like one of those, but you know, money. Okay, what can we do about this logo? We're totally off script now, but we've still got a few minutes, so let's just go ahead and see what we can do with a bit of messing around with our nav logo. Let's add 20 pixels to the top. I know what we need to do. Brilliant. Then I'm not sure what to do about this blue background. Let's go ahead and see if we can add a... That's actually a really good question. Let's just change the background color, which is presumably this nav bar. Yeah. We can make that a much darker, much lighter. And that actually doesn't look too bad, you know, with a white stripe here and then blue for me. Just want a bit more spacing. Let's go to back to our nav logo, increase this margin a bit. I mean, I'm totally eyeballing it, but personally, I think that looks pretty good. So what changes did we make? That was useless. We changed the background color. Okay, so let's dig into our SAS. We'll go to navbar. So our navbar we changed to just white. And then our logo, we changed the margin to that. If I go back and I reload, looking good. So I've got a white background, got MLH logo instead of the fellowship, still got this, got my information here as well. And I'm going to go ahead and commit and push these changes. If we do a git status, see that we modified the navbar file and that logo. Fun fact, if you do a git diff, that'll actually show you more specifically what was changed. So you'll see here in this navbar SCSS file, we changed the background color. If you scroll, we also changed the margin. We also changed the SVG, but we don't really need to look at the changes there. Let's go ahead and do a git add. We'll do a git commit message, use MLH logo on homepage. And do a git push. And again, GitHub Pages can take a, oh gosh, what did we do wrong here? So you remember how we made that CNAME file using the web interface? We added a new file. This means that my repository locally is actually now behind the repository on GitHub. So if I do a git fetch, git status, we see that we have like these different commits. And my terminal, you are correct, I'm using power level 10K on ZSH. I'm one commit behind. That's the CNAME commit. And I'm also one commit ahead. That's the local changes. So let's just do a git pull. One of these days, I'll learn how to quit Vim properly. I think, is it that? Okay. And then we'll do a git. So those are pushed up to GitHub. I'll see these commits here. Merge commit. And we'll just give that a couple of minutes to republish. Oh my God, something's gone very wrong. Something's gone wrong on the live site here. Did I close Safari? So I wonder if we've got a caching problem here, you know. Network. There we go, it's a cache problem. So that looks good. I don't know what's going on here in Chrome. Should we take a quick look at the console? Blocked loading mixed active content. HTTP. So you remember how we changed I had to change the URL in VS Code in the that's not VS Code in the config file. This is the URL of the site. This is really important actually that we keep this up to date. So this needs to say robbie.dev. And this stuff's a little tricky to test locally, but I'm just going to blindly go ahead and do a git add, git commit, database URL to robbie.dev, and a git push. And hopefully in a minute or two that'll work fine. How else are we doing on the Twitch chat? Thank you so much for storing the margin. That's super helpful. Can you change the navbar color when editing it directly on GitHub? Yes, all the changes I'm making here locally in VS Code, you can actually go ahead and do on here as well. So you can head into SAS, into navbar, and you'll see it's here, that background color. You can just do the same thing, hit the pencil to edit it, go ahead and change it. What else we got? Good night. Thanks for the hackathon. Thanks, Robbie. Brilliant. It's been fantastic having you. Have a great night. I'm sure it's pretty late where you are. Thanks for attending. I have the same issue. I presume this is due to the git pull CNAME thing that I was dealing with. QW exclamation mark. I didn't do the exclamation mark. I don't know what that does, but no need to learn to quit Vim. Just reboot your computer each time. Classic. I did actually do that. The very first time I used Vim, I could not work. I had to quit. So I just held the power button on my computer. I use the MLH template, check the GitHub pages, it isn't working. Make sure that you've configured everything as you should with the README, so updating that config file and the URL as well. Make sure that the name of the repository exactly matches your username. If it's not an exact match, it's not going to work. And in your settings as well, just make sure that it says your site's published, you're using branch master and the root. Let's turn this on as well, actually, enforce HTTPS. Yeah, one of these days I'll learn Vim, one day. Sell it and buy a new one, if you're referring to my Mac. Yeah, I could, you know. You know what? I was actually really unlucky with this Mac. So I bought it back in April 2018. And 4 weeks later, Apple released a new MacBook Pro with like a refresh lineup. Not a big change, but like, you know, new processors and that kind of stuff. Basically meant I spent about £1,000 more than I needed to if I just waited a month. And then like 6 months after that, they released a 16-inch MacBook Pro. So within like 7 months of buying my Mac, it was 2 generations out of date. And that hurt because it's the most expensive thing I ever bought. You know, this thing costs more than my car. Now I have a 16-inch Mac from Amazon, which I use for work as well. So I've got two Macs. Anything else here? Can you change the background color from the code? Yes, so the same way we just described the VS Code, changing the background color here in the SAS file. You can also go ahead and do that using the web interface. What else have we got? Chrome had the same problem for me. Yeah, fair enough. I think it might be to do with that enforce HTTPS checkbox. Not working. What else have we got? Lots of thank you messages, which is fantastic. I hope you found this useful. It's been a learning experience for me, as well as it has for all of you, which is great. Since I'm from mobile, can I use Flutter Web? Because I'm not familiar with web. So GitHub Pages is actually really versatile. You can just basically pump any HTML files at it, and it will host the site for you. So even though we use a template to do a lot of the hard work for us, you could have a basically blank repository with just a file index.html, and it'll host that. So whatever framework you want to use to generate that static output, you can use that. We use Jekyll because GitHub Pages has built-in support for building Jekyll files. Do I prefer Chrome DevTools or Firefox DevTools? Personally, Firefox. I kind of don't like using Chrome. They're both very, very good anyway. Firefox has a couple of nice features to do with like CSS grid and stuff like that. It may be that Chrome DevTools is caught up with that now. But the number one feature for me is that whenever I right-click, for inspect element, I can just hit the Q button and it brings it up for me. Now that is a lifesaver, because doing like right-click and then inspect element is, you know, slow. Right-click and then Q, beautiful. How else are we doing? The site won't load properly on Safari. Looks like it's fine for me. So this is a classic case of works on my machine. I told that to my boss in my first job, and he was not too impressed when it failed in production. keep poking around. It's a pretty simple static site. Just make sure you're doing a hard refresh, clearing the cache, all that kind of stuff. Greetings from Mexico. Awesome. Greetings from the United Kingdom. I think I need a new mouse. My scrolling is crazy. How many keyboard replacements have you had? So my 15-inch MacBook Pro, just the one. But I was thinking about getting a second one because it's being a little bit unresponsive. The worst one actually is I bought the 12-inch MacBook when that came out. That was the really thin one, and it was the very first generation of the butterfly keyboard. That thing was flaky. Yeah, that was bad. I got that keyboard replaced as well. What headphones do you use? I have the AirPods Pro, which I use for my phone and my iPad and my Mac. But honestly, when I'm sitting at my desk, I don't really use headphones. I've got my Blue Snowball microphone, and then even when I'm on... Nothing like throwing a 90-pound Logitech mouse on the floor. Yeah, I don't use headphones at my desktop, really. What else have we got? Help with changing the profile picture. So that is called logo.jpg. So just replace that with a picture of you. Give it the same name. It should update automatically. How to merge requests from GitHub. So that's slightly different, but on GitHub you can head to pull requests and make a pull request. Essentially, you just want to branch off locally, so you can do git branch. I don't know. Let's git branch my branch. Yeah, make your commits on that branch, push them, make a pull request. Good night, everyone. Yep, it's pretty good timing. We've basically gone over time as well. So we need to wrap things up here. The website doesn't look like yours. We had this issue earlier. Make sure you have updated in your config file the URL. It needs to be either your custom domain or your username.github.io. It's really important because that's kind of the references to the style sheets. Jekyll is basically the framework we use that will take that allows us to do stuff like this. And then actually turn it into HTML. It's really nice. But a bit of a pain to install. Chrome all the way for me. Fair enough. Most people say that. I'm still Firefox at heart. Brilliant. I think that is... Oh, hi from the Isle of Man. Awesome. I actually grew up in Cumbria, the Lake District, so just across the bit of water from you. I think that does kind of bring things to a close. Important things you need to know are that you must make sure you submit to DevPost. So I'm going to post the link here again. It's this one, lhdbuildday1.devpost.com. Make sure you've posted to there. Really, really important that you do that to enter the challenge. And also head to the organize page. Never find it. Basically, you need to check in for the workshop as well, which is sign up and then set up a personal GitHub page. There's this one too. I'm going to go ahead and post this link in here as well. I'm on my 5th replacement, presuming you're referring to keyboards. That's crazy. That's really unlucky. I'm on my 3rd replacement AirPod Pro, and I need to replace the right one again. Yeah. Why do we spend money on this stuff? I don't know. Can we add this event to our portfolio? Yes, that's a great idea, actually. Go ahead and add it on as a local Hack Day build, and you'll put it on projects or education or whatever you think it fits best on. Why are we using Jekyll? Jekyll is great because GitHub Pages has built-in support for building Jekyll sites, which is fantastic. My navbar isn't changing color. So if you're referring to this bit, the change we made was on this .navbar as a background color. Okay, we are going to wrap things up there because that's all we've got time for. We've already run over by 5 minutes. But it has been an absolute pleasure being your host today. I hope you found this session useful. I hope you've learned something, and I know I've learned something. I've been really inspired to be part of this community. There's so many great people involved. And to have so many people as well watching, we've got 363 live viewers right now is really, really awesome. Make sure you head back to the Discord, hang out with everybody there, and do those 2 things that I just mentioned. So you've got to check in on Organizer HQ, I think it's called. And you also got to submit your project onto DevPost, onto the challenge. Also really, really important. But it has been a blast. I've really, really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for everybody. My name is Robbie. I'm from MLH. You can find me at robswolf. Honestly, I don't really use Twitter, but LinkedIn, Facebook, hit me up. It's been fun chatting to you all. And have a great day. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.